Isak update, please, brother. No problem, sir. No problem. Let me just get my notes in order here for you. So, look, it's been a bit of a weird one in the Isak front today. We see the usual Luke Edwards nonsense posted about, this, that, and the other, and what he could have done, should have done. But ultimately, it does look like, even if he doesn't move to Liverpool, he's played his last game in the Newcastle shirt in his mind. There's a report tonight that said Newcastle believe Liverpool are fit to make another £130 million bid. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. David Ornstein said Newcastle United reached an agreement with Aston Villa to sign Jacob Ramsey, 24-year-old midfielder, in a deal worth £39 million fixed and £5 million in add-ons. The Englishman is travelling for his medical. Now, of course, that isn't a striker, so that's not really going to help us there. But the situation is taking a little bit of a twist. Lee Ryder, who worked for the Chronicle, who I believe are the Echo's sister newspaper up north, said Newcastle are still trying to do the Johan Visa deal and another striker, not helped at all by the uncertainty surrounding Alexander Isak. It is weird because they love to point out that the Isak situation is stopping them from doing other stuff, but it's stopping everybody. Let me read out what Luke Edwards posted today, and I'm going to try and give you my take on it. So this is what Luke Edwards of The Telegraph had to say. Alexander Isak's agent has failed him so badly. I don't condone Isak's behaviour in the slightest, but he was told the move to Liverpool would happen even though they are unwilling to match the valuation, and all he had to do was behave badly to force it through. He's now got a player who has alienated a fan base, tarnished his reputation within football forever, who was probably not going to get the move he was told was his to make. He signed a 6-year contract with no release clause. His agent negotiated that. Trying to force your way out with 3 years left on that deal was always going to be a very risky road to go down, but he did it anyway. Isak might still end up at Liverpool, but the chances are fading now rapidly and have been for weeks. How he repairs the damage remains to be seen, but he will play next season regardless. The sooner he realises the terrible mistake he has made and apologises, the better. Play well, score goals, and you'll get that huge move next summer if that's still what he wants. Now, I've got to say, I think I speak for certainly most Liverpool fans when I say that Luke Edwards has been an embarrassment, the way he's covered this. And it is, again, baiting, in my opinion. And look, this is just my opinion, but I think that he is basically trying to be a mouthpiece for the Newcastle hierarchy, but has contradicted himself left, right and centre. Even in his one post today, he's contradicted himself. He goes on to say he's alienated himself and not going to get the move he was told was his to make, and then finishes off the post by saying he may well get the move. Let me just say this. I cannot wait for Luke Edwards to be wrong, for everybody within football to know he was wrong, and for every Liverpool fan to revisit to tell him he was wrong. Now, he might say, I've won in this, I've gotten attention out of it. And yes, you've probably gotten a few sign-ups to the Telegraph 3 months offer that they put out there. But ultimately, like I've said, journalists have a choice in these matters. They can either be a club lackey and do what the club want them to do, or they can be honest with their readership and have a future. If you want your future as a journalist to be based off feed downs or drip downs from a club, slippery slope, because what you don't have then is the readership that actually know that you're doing what's best for football and you're writing about what's best in the story, not what one side wants you to write. So for me, he's an absolute disgrace. I don't like him. I don't like this piece. I didn't even fucking know he existed before this summer. But the whole summer, he has basically tried to just belittle Liverpool, in my opinion. Look down his nose at Isak and the way this is unfolded. And also, never once seemingly looked at it from the point of view of Alexander Isak and the broken promises that the Newcastle hierarchy, who are in a bit of a mess behind the scenes, have made to the player. It's all very, very one-sided from Luke. And I get it. Maybe Newcastle want that out there. I get it. But once again, we, the footballing public, don't have to just sit back and take this nonsense because it's just bullshit over and over and over again. I'm fed up of it. And I'm sure I speak for many people when I say that. But again, if he wants his reputation as a journalist to be in tatters, carry on doing what you're doing, sir. This one from Alex. Said free Isak. So what do you guys think of the reporting from Luke Edwards? Now look, I don't know Luke Edwards from Adam, and I'm certainly not trying to run down the Telegraph as a newspaper, but I do think the way he's covered this is very much the coverage from somebody who wants favour with a football club. It doesn't look to me like he's writing this from an objective stance. Look at and contrast him to Craig Hope, who of course covers Newcastle. But I think Craig Hope has covered this situation really well. Yes, there's been a time where you can see maybe he got a little bit hot and bothered in it, but I get that. He's also a Newcastle fan. But I really do admire the way he's covered it. Integrity. Same with the gentleman from Sky Sports News. I think he's covered himself really well. Keith Downey as well. But it just feels like, for me, he's been just baiting Liverpool fans all summer. And, you know, just trying to make a name for himself by dividing opinion so much. That's my take on it. It just looks like shit journalism to me. So, Craig Hope of the Daily Mail has said, Alexander Isak does not want to train with the squad, and by extension, that rules him out of all fixtures for the foreseeable future, while the club continue to pay his £140,000 a week wages. As of last week, he had not been disciplined by way of a fine. We understand that will change if he misses a competitive match, as he will this weekend. So, again, all signs in this Isak saga point to no resolution here between Isak and Newcastle. And I know that Liverpool are involved in this. Of course, I'm aware that our interest in Isak has probably, exacerbated this situation. But it would seem like the sensible thing to do now for Newcastle is to get to the point where they talk to Liverpool about the fee, because it looks as if they're headed in the direction where they probably will get Visa over the line quickly. There's a chain of transfers that are going to come into place to make that happen. And it certainly looks as if Nicholas Jackson is very, very willing, and Chelsea are willing sellers to get that deal done. So if they happen, it's common sense then that Liverpool will come in for Isak. But what we won't do, and I want to again re-emphasise this, you won't see £150 million paid. I don't know where this arbitrary number came from, but it's never a realistic number that anybody that covers the Liverpool side, whether it be journalists, fans, nobody's ever talked about 150 million. That's just not going to happen. Shame Isak didn't have the release clause in his contract before he went to Newcastle. It would save much time. What do you think? Look, some clubs don't like release clauses in deals, and I think Liverpool would be one of those. It always feels, I know some countries like Spain, legally, there has to be a release clause in a contract, but it always feels like you're never getting a buy-in from a player if there's a release clause in it. So let's say we sign somebody, let's say Isak, just for the conversation, and Isak wanted a £120 million release clause in it. I don't know about you, but for me as a fan, you're thinking he already is thinking about that next step or moving away from the club. And he wants that guarantee in there. Now, I can see why a player would do it. Haaland had it in his deals as well. And like I said, in Spain and other countries, you have to have them in your contracts. But it never just feels like a show of faith, does it, when a player's coming in if there's a release clause in there? It always feels like the clock's ticking about this guy maybe exiting.